So I told you to get more functional and consultant in the group. Also to make people know that there are already a lot of tools that people that are not technical can use. For example, how to translate for the OCA. There is also, already the Weblate and things like that. How you can test easily modules. There is the Runboat. And so we want also to make all this known. We wanted also to have a space to share practices or ask the others, oh, I have a customer in this domain, how do you do that, how do you do that? Which is something we don't really do, but we could do. And also we want to put more effort to improve the documentation. And maybe later, so those are all the objectives, we haven't met them yet, to bring the voice of the customers to the OCA, because we are the people talking to the customers, and the developers sometimes don't, and they produce some code, but not really, the user interface might not be good, other stuff. So have really a more customer point of view inside the OCA. I do it. Yes. It's it. Yeah. Okay, so those are the people who have been working this year. So I told you, Julie and Florencia. We also have Lara in the back from TERP. Francesco from Italy, who couldn't be there. Guillaume from Axon team, and myself. And we also have other people who are not always there, but who support also the activity. So Manuel, who's just there. And also people from Camp to Camp, so Jan and Charlene, and Elodie from Acquisition. So we have people from a lot of different companies, but of course we are all really busy, and it's sometimes hard to give priority to the OCA meetings and stuff, so normal. So what we did this year, besides talking and discussing and having ideas, we also did real things. So we created a new page on the website focused on people who are not technical, to get to know how you can enter the OCA world. It's just a first step, we can improve it, but at least we think it's a way to welcome people in the community. We also have worked on the documentation. It's a hard topic, so stay afterwards to get the last info about that. And we also, last year, so yeah, the year before, one of the working group focused on building a set of must-have modules in the OCA, depending on certain topic, like basic, the one you should always install, but also on the topic of sales and purchases. And this is all in the Excel sheet hidden somewhere in our Google Drive, and we also are working to put it on the OCA website and to share it with the people. And also, of course, events. It's what I said before. We have a full track dedicated to consultants this year again. And those are the topic of the days. I continue? Yes. Okay, so we are here on the top left. Welcome to the working group. Then just after this presentation, you will have a focus on a brainstorm about a tool that will help non-technical people to write modules documentation, because now we need to go into GitHub. It's really hard when you are not used to it. So we have ideas to get it more easy for the people. So we will present the status of the brainstorming. After that, we will have a full explanation from Julie and Flor about how do I contribute right now. So if you want to go the GitHub way, it is possible. You will see it's a long process, but you can already do it right now. And then it will be followed by tips and tricks how to write a good documentation by Lara and Julie. And this afternoon, it's more organized around workshops. So let's try to dig in. And we will have two parallel workshops. One about the following of the talk of this morning about what tool we need. And we will have a technical person who has ideas to help us define what we could have as a prototype. That's one part with Florencia and Jairo, who is the technical guy. And the second workshop in parallel will be about let's write some good documentation right now because we know how to do it and we have the guidelines how to write a good documentation. So let's just do it. So we have a list of several modules that we want to improve. So we want to make sure also you get to make it yourself on your own so that when you come back to home, you can just continue without our help.
There's one talk that's missing here. It's at 12. It will be with Manuel, where we will explain to you the guidelines for good documentation, how it works in OCA, how to structure your README, your documentation. So it was missing, so I wanted to point that you will have a talk about that.
Thank you. Yeah, and this is good. Yeah. Oh, thank you. And this was also, a small call to action. If you want to contribute to the OCA, if you are not a technical, you don't have a technical background, you can do a lot of things actually to help. You can lobby for the OCA inside your enterprise, your company, and make the OCA known by your colleagues, your customers, and things like that. You can also ask for your boss to accept that you pay, that you work for the OCA while you are working for him or for her. Also, you could sponsor the OCA, become a member, and participate in the working group. So if you want to join the working group, for example, this one, you can come to us and discuss that. And you can also participate in the OCA governance, so you can become a delegate, a board member. We need more different profiles in the board, so please join. We will have a talk about the General Assembly stuff later this day. You can also become a financial auditor. We don't say it enough, but if you know accounting, you could help to review the accounting of the OCA once a year. It is something we need also for the good governance of the association. And also, you can help to organize the OCA days next year. We won't make it a weekly event. And so if you want to go more into detail, as a consultant, you can also always search for OCA modules first. It's like, my customer wants something, let's check, the OCA must have something for me. You can help translate with the WebBlades tool. If you don't know how to do it, we had a talk last year during the OCA days, so you can check on the YouTube channel a whole talk explaining the steps to go to WebBlade and translate. You can help improve the documentation, so stay here. You can also test the modules and report the issues to the developers and hope for an answer. And also do reviews, because we don't only need technical reviews when a new feature is coming to the OCA. We also need a functional point of view. So go there and you can make some reviews and help improve the feature. That's it, and that's all. I think we are good on the time.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you have questions? So we have this pad.
Oh, we can.
We can also take questions.
There's no questions.
Okay, on the pad. Okay. Do you have any comments, questions?
From the point of view of developers.
We have a microphone for you.
For the YouTube recording.
From the point of view of a developer, how does that fit in with contributing to documentation?
So again?
From the point of view of a developer, how do you also contribute to documentation?
Oh yeah, but first you have to be conscious that you can write documentation as a developer, I would say. And that's true that we are focusing in this room about how to document things for non-technical people, but you should stay and follow the guidelines, because it's also true that you can do it. Yeah.
And you don't need any help to do it in GitHub, so that's a plus.
Yeah, that's true.
So the question is, are there any further plans to implement some sort of the constraints for the documentation quality checks like we have right now for the code? I don't say let's do it right now, but in a couple of years we have some tests, yes, which are checking the code. Probably we need something that will check the documentation quality. Any ideas about that?
Can you speak louder?
Yes, I can.
I hear, but some words only.
Maybe I can help with the answer. I think that at the beginning, for the people, because he was asking if we were thinking about implementing something to test if the documentation is okay. But I think that the first step is to have documentation, and later on we can work into evaluate if the documentation is okay or not. But right now, most of the READMEs has only one very brief description, and we need to work to have more information. And if you have also more people working on the documentation, maybe you can check something that someone has written and you can improve it, of course.
Yeah, we do that.
So yes, we talked about it because the quality of the documentation is also important, but it was like Flor said, we need to have documentation to talk about the quality. So first step, having the documentation, and then yes, it will be a topic to address.
I'm talking about the future. Not saying,
Yeah.
okay, in a couple of hours, let's do it.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm quite new to the Odoo community. Like we are using it for around about a year now. So documentation is important for us because we just need to know what we are using. And so I'm more like talking from a user's perspective. And I have to say, yeah, the documentation of the OCA modules, it is there, but it is usually bad. So what I think what would really help is to have a set of standard questions that have to be answered for any module documentation, because yeah, there is some structuring in that, but the most important things are not really answered, like what is this thing good for, how do I use it, why should I use it, and just such very simple questions.
Yes, and those topics were very important for us. That's why we have those talks today about the guidelines, the requirements, but also tips and tricks to what should be put into the documentation. And those questions are indeed really important, so we will talk about it later. Good point. Any more questions?
Hello. It's not really a question, but as I'm PSC of the logistic repository, I contribute a lot in coordinating everything that is coming from all the community. And I think we need to tackle this topic from the two sides. So you see that as something already existing, and you try to document, but I think we need also to improve when people are contributing, that the functional people also the intention of what they try to provide to the community, what they try to achieve with new contribution. And because I see a lot of PRs coming in where it's always a guessing of what was in the mind of the person that asked the developer to do this PR. And then this PR, we try to understand it, and it's coming in the repository, and then we try to do the documentation of it. But we need to tackle that from the beginning. We need to explain what we are missing in the community, what we are missing in the OCA, and what we would like to improve. And I think we have the channel for that. We can also create some issues. What we are completely lacking is that very few people create issue explaining what they miss. I think it's a good place also for functional people to just open issue and explain what are their challenge with what they found out so far and why they cannot answer some new requirement they are facing today. And with that we can also better communicate, because the PR are mainly coming from developers. and we developers doesn't always know what is the context behind, and it's always a challenge to try to understand how this is fitting inside what is already there or not. So just wanted to...
Yes, and that's a good point. That's why last year, if you remember, we added a new fragment into the structure of the READMEs, which is the context one, because sometimes we don't have the context. As you said, we don't know why the module was developed in the first steps of yeah. So the context is really important to understand the why of the module, and then yes, it could help too. No more.
No, I agree.
Yeah, good point. Thank you.
Because Odoo 18 is soon coming out, and at the OCA we're working on adding Odoo 18 support, would it make sense, this is a stupid suggestion, to mandate more documentation for all OCA Odoo 18 modules?
What do you mean by mandate?
So at the moment, if you want to have a module in the OCA, you have to have, I think, a description file and an authors file. And those are the only, no, not even authors, just description. Yeah. And it's usually, it's just one line and it's not very good. Does it make sense to mandate more files? Then developers will have to think a little more.
We talked about it, and we wanted to put like the context mandatory and the usage also. But you know, we didn't know if the community was open to it, because you know, sometimes the developers they're just like, okay, but do I really need to complete all those files? So we didn't want to arrive with our like big boots and say, okay, now it's mandatory. So we start soft. But yes, it's a discussion we can have in the community and decide if everybody agrees, it could be really a good idea to improve the documentation.
Okay, I will start that discussion in the relevant pull request.
Yeah, but what also I think is missing is example of good documentation. And before asking people to do things, mandatory things, I think they need some inspiration first. So that's also a part of the answer. There is another question there.
Yeah, just picking up on the last thing that you two discussed, I think it is reasonable to make some kind of documentation mandatory, like you would have a reasonable quality of code mandatory, because otherwise people wouldn't want to use it, and if they don't know how or why they should use it, why have it in the repository at all?
Yeah. Okay, one last question.
I'll say it loud. So probably we can also think about some sort of a rating for, as let's say, a rating of goodness of the documentation. So we can rate modules by, okay, this is awesome documentation. This is also very good documentation, and this is not very sufficient documentation. And I'm not braving, don't mind it, but I think that we must show people examples. So the first question, okay, we say you must do good documentation, and the first question, okay, show me an example, and go in the repo. He says, oh, there is a description, it's a nice model, please use it. Well, that's a good example. I highly doubt, yeah. So, yeah, it's a sort of cozy. Then we need to provide, and this will also help to promote those modules. That's the idea. So let's make a rating of the well-documented modules, and I think it's a sort of a gamification. Yes, people like it. So, okay, I would like to push my model higher and higher, and not just with likes and reposts. I would like to make the documentation higher.
Well, we already have some kind of rating of the modules, but I don't know if it's the same goal, but with the maturity level, something like that the community doesn't really use. So I'm just afraid that bringing more rating and things like that will, I don't know. It depends, I think, the way you do it and you promote it and you make it sexy and gaming and stuff. But yeah, okay, those are good ideas for the future.
Can I have the microphone to answer?
Yes.
Yeah,
But come here, take the microphone. Yeah.
Hello. So I'm doing this talk afterwards about the structure, and I wanted to find some examples of what a really, really good, awesome documentation, as he said, was, and I couldn't find any. So it was like amazingly difficult, and I couldn't have one example, and I looked for a lot. So I'm basically going to explain where I should, what I think maybe we should have added to this, because this is almost great, but not quite. So I think the first step is to have a lot of examples, so that, as she said, have a really nice or inspiration, yeah, for everyone to start understanding and copy examples.
Yeah. So it's all the time we have, but you know, this topic, I know you are very, very like motivated by this topic, so stay, because we continue to talk about it. Thank you.